The first time I noticed it, Haley was laughing at something Jake said while standing just a little too close to him on our porch. I remember the way she reached out, lightly touched his arm in that way women do when they want to make a man feel seen. Harmless, I thought. Maybe even sweet. We were all friends after all. Jake and Lena had been our neighbors for nearly 4 years, cookouts, game nights, holiday parties. The four of us were practically a team. It started small. Little things. Little cracks. I remember the night we traded spare keys. Jake made a dumb joke, something about Haley sneaking over to water more than just the plants while Lena was out of town, and Haley laughed a little too loud. I didn't think much of it then. Just one of those throwaway comments, the kind that passes without consequence when you're drunk on wine and trust. Just in case, Lena had said, tossing me their spare key with a wink. If we ever get locked out, or need someone to check the stove, or kill a spider. Yeah, Jake added, grinning as he handed Haley our key. Or if someone needs to sneak in and borrow wine. It all felt like a joke. Just neighbors being friendly. But now, when I look back on that night, I realize I should have listened more closely to the way the laughter stuck in Jake's throat when he said it, and how my wife didn't look at me when she pocketed their key. It was subtle at first, the change in her. Like the way she'd suddenly start wearing her hair down when Jake stopped by, or how she'd switch into that red V-neck sweater that hugged her curves just right, even if she'd been lounging in sweats 5 minutes before. And there was this one time, after one of our game nights, I caught her standing in front of the mirror, reapplying lip gloss, before going back downstairs. I noticed the small things because that's what you do when you love someone. You track the rhythm of their life like it's your favorite song. And when the beat changes, you feel it, even if you can't quite name it. I remember one night, she came back inside after saying goodbye to Jake and Lena on the porch. She was flushed, like she'd run up the stairs or something, but her voice was too casual, too smooth. I told Jake we might join them for that wine tasting next weekend, she said, brushing past me. I blinked. You told Jake we'd go? She shrugged. Why not? It'll be fun. But the truth was, Haley hated wine tastings. She said they were pretentious, that she couldn't tell a Cabernet from a Kool-Aid packet. But suddenly, she was into wine. Like, really into it. Reading about it, sipping it while cooking, describing it in ways I'd never heard her do in all our 8 years of marriage. Notes of oak and plum? That wasn't her. That was someone else. Someone trying to impress someone else. Jake was always around, fixing a loose shutter, offering to help with our leaky faucet, inviting himself over for football on Sundays while Lena had a thing with her sister. At first, I welcomed it. He was my friend, or I thought he was. But I started seeing how Haley's face lit up just a little brighter when he was around. How her voice lifted. How she laughed at things he said that weren't even remotely funny. There was this one afternoon. I came home early from a meeting and found her in the kitchen. She didn't hear me walk in. She was texting someone, smiling to herself. I stepped into the room, and she flinched. Not visibly, just enough that I noticed. Who were you texting? I asked casually. She turned her phone face down. Lena, she said, too quickly. We were talking about plants. Haley couldn't keep a succulent alive for more than a week. That night, I laid awake next to her while she scrolled through her phone under the covers. Her screen glowed against her skin, casting her face in soft blue. I wanted to ask her again. Wanted to reach over, take the phone, and make her tell me what was going on. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because the truth is, once you ask the question, you can't unhear the answer. I convinced myself it was nothing. I gaslit my own gut instincts. After all, she hadn't done anything. Not really. There was no lipstick on anyone's collar. No hotel receipt in the trash. Just a collection of moments that didn't quite add up. But then came the giggle. That one night on the porch. I was doing dishes while she and Jake stood outside talking. I couldn't hear the words. Just the laugh. High, flirty, unmistakable. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in years, not directed at me, anyway. I dried my hands and walked to the window. They stood closer than they needed to. Jake was leaning in, his hand braced against the siding just above her shoulder. She didn't step back. Her arms were crossed, but her body angled toward him. And then, as if sensing me, she turned. Our eyes met. She froze. Her smile dropped. I stepped back from the window and went to the fridge, pretending I was just grabbing a drink. She came in a minute later, breathless. Jake just remembered he left his sprinkler on. He had to go. I nodded. Everything okay? She asked. I shrugged. Just in case, I said, echoing her voice from that key-swapping night. She stiffened, but said nothing. That night, while she slept, I walked into the bathroom and opened the drawer on her side of the vanity. Nothing unusual. Just the regular stuff. Moisturizer. Hair ties. And then, tucked in with a few receipts and a bottle of perfume, was a key. Not our key. It was silver, with a faded red tag that read JNL. Jake and Lena's key. The same one Jake had handed me 2 years ago with a laugh. And now it was in Haley's drawer. It sat there like a loaded gun. That spare key. Jake and Lena's key wasn't supposed to be in our house, let alone in Haley's drawer, buried under lip balm and perfume samples like a secret waiting to be found. My first instinct was to tell myself it meant nothing. Maybe she forgot it was there. Maybe Lena gave it to her again recently. Maybe I was being paranoid. But those excuses sounded hollow even in my own head. I didn't touch it. I just closed the drawer slowly, quietly. Like closing the lid on something that wasn't dead yet but needed to be. The next few days, I became a ghost in my own home. Not because I said less, Haley didn't notice that. I became a ghost because I was watching everything. Silently. Closely. Like someone trying to memorize the way a building leans before it collapses. On Thursday, Jake stopped by while I was in the garage, supposedly to borrow a drill. I heard the door open, then Haley's voice float through the window, lighter, breathier than usual. "Oh hey, I didn't think you were coming till later." His voice dropped. I couldn't wait. I stood frozen next to the shelves where I kept my tools, my hand hovering near the socket set. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. "Wine?" she asked. "It's barely 5, he laughed. "Since when did that ever stop you?" Silence. And then, a giggle. Hers. The same kind of giggle I'd heard out on the porch. Soft, flirtatious, not meant for me. I waited another 10 seconds, then slammed the garage door a little too hard as I came in. They were on the couch. Nothing damning. Just the two of them sitting a little too close, an empty glass already in Jake's hand. Haley stood up quickly, brushing non-existent lint from her pants. "Hey, babe," she said, trying to sound casual. "Jake just came to borrow the drill. I was just keeping him company." I glanced at the half-empty bottle of red on the kitchen counter. "Looks like you were keeping him company and then some." Jake smiled, as if he was too cool to be rattled. "We were just talking about Lena's garden. She's trying to grow rosemary again, and it keeps dying. I told Haley she should show her yours, it's thriving." "Sure," I said, setting my keys down a little louder than necessary. "Let's all compare bushes." Jake chuckled, but Haley didn't. Her eyes flicked to mine, cautious. Measuring. She could sense it. Something had changed in me. After Jake left, I followed her into the bedroom. She was brushing her hair in front of the mirror. I leaned in the doorway and just watched her. "You see him often when I'm not home?" I asked. She froze, brush mid-stroke. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just wondering. You're always smiling when he's around." She turned, a forced smile pulling at her mouth. "Don't be ridiculous. He's our friend. Is that what we're calling it now?" She blinked. "Daniel, where is this coming from?" I shrugged. "I found the key. The one Jake gave us. The one that was supposed to stay in the junk drawer by the front door." Her face changed. Just a flicker, but I saw it. The quick recalibration, the mental gymnastics. "Oh, that," she said, too quickly. "Lena gave it to me again a while back. In case they went out of town and needed me to water the plants. You never told me." She turned back to the mirror, brushing with short, nervous strokes. I didn't think it mattered. I watched her brush the same section of hair over and over, like she was trying to erase what had just happened. The next night, I stayed up late pretending to work in my home office. Around 11 p.m., I walked into the kitchen and found Haley sitting on the patio with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and a glass of wine in her hand. Her phone was in her lap. She jumped when she saw me. "Couldn't sleep," she said, tucking her phone under the blanket like a teenager caught texting past curfew. "Didn't mean to scare you." "You didn't." But her voice was tight. Her glass was almost empty. "Texting Lena?" I asked. She hesitated. "No. Just reading." I nodded and turned away. I didn't ask to see the phone. Didn't accuse. Didn't yell. I just walked back inside and stood in the dark hallway, just far enough to be out of view, but close enough to hear her sigh. A few nights later, it was the porch again. This time, I opened the back door quickly, like I was going out for something. I caught them mid-conversation. Her laugh died the second she saw me. Jake stood. "We were just..." "Wine," I said flatly. "I know." They both stood there like actors caught in the wrong scene. Jake held his glass like a shield. Haley wouldn't meet my eyes. I walked past them, opened the garage door. and stared inside for a full minute before closing it again and walking back in. Not saying a word, just letting the silence settle around us like fog. I didn't need confessions. I needed patterns, and they were giving me plenty. The next afternoon, while she was out running errands, I opened her nightstand drawer again. The key was gone. That same night, she made lasagna. Haley never made lasagna. She set the table with candles. Were perfume Jake and Lena coming over? I asked. No, she said, pausing. Why would they be? I just nodded, took a bite, and said nothing. But something shifted in her. I could see it. The tension, the guilt, the restlessness. She was cracking, either from me or from the weight of whatever she was hiding. I started to think about emergencies. The just-in-case situations we'd talked about when we exchanged keys. Locked doors, burnt casseroles, missed Amazon deliveries. But now, I was seeing a different kind of emergency, one I never imagined. And the worst part? I wasn't sure if I was the fire or the one being burned. I didn't confront her that night. I wish I could say I stormed into the bedroom, held up the key like a smoking gun, and demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I stood in the dim bathroom light, the key pinched between my fingers like it was radioactive, and I just stared. My first thought was denial. Maybe it ended up there by accident. Maybe Lena had asked her to hold it for a few days. Maybe Jake dropped it and Haley was just keeping it safe. But then I remembered something Jake had said months ago during one of our game nights. I had made a joke about misplacing keys, and he raised his beer and said, I only ever lose the keys I'm not supposed to be using. At the time, it got a chuckle from everyone, including me. But now, that memory had an aftertaste I couldn't shake. The key wasn't supposed to be there. I slipped it back into the drawer, careful to place it exactly how I found it. I didn't want to tip her off, not yet. Because if my suspicions were right, then this wasn't something I could fix with an apology or a weekend getaway. This was deeper. Worse. The next few days were like walking through a dream that kept trying to become a nightmare. I watched everything Haley did with new eyes. The way she lingered on her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she seemed distracted, like her thoughts were always somewhere else. Or with someone else. It was Wednesday when I came home early from work. I told her I had a late client meeting, but I canceled it just to be home. Just to see. The house was quiet when I walked in, too quiet. Her car was in the driveway, but there was no sound of music, no clinking dishes, no movement. Then I heard it. Laughter. Faint. From the backyard. I moved slowly, quietly, down the hallway and toward the sliding glass doors. Haley was sitting on the patio, legs tucked under her, sipping wine in the middle of the afternoon. Jake was there, too, on the other side of the table, leaning in close, whispering something that made her giggle soft, breathy. She hadn't heard me come in. I didn't go outside. I didn't slam the door open or make my presence known. Instead, I just stood there, behind the curtain, heart thudding in my chest as I watched my wife flirt with our neighbor in the same backyard where we'd had our wedding anniversary dinner just last year. After a few minutes, she stood and walked inside, her wine glass in hand, cheeks flushed from either the drink or the attention. Or both. She jumped when she saw me. Oh, I thought you had a meeting. Got canceled, I said, keeping my voice steady. You and Jake hanging out? She blinked. Yeah, he stopped by to return the trimmer. We were just catching up. I nodded. Catching up with wine at 2 o'clock? Her eyes narrowed slightly, defensive. It's just a glass. You're making it weird. Maybe it is weird. She didn't answer. She turned and went into the kitchen, muttering something about dinner. I followed her with my eyes, not my feet. I knew if I pushed now, I'd be the one painted as jealous, irrational. And maybe I was. But something didn't sit right. Later that night, while she showered, I checked her purse. I know how that sounds. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who snoops through his wife's things. But I had to know. I needed a thread to pull. Her phone wasn't there, of course. She took it everywhere now, even to the bathroom. But in the side pocket of her purse was a receipt. From a boutique wine store Jake had recommended to us months ago. A bottle of Syrah, Jake's favorite. Not hers. Not mine. Dated that afternoon. I folded the receipt and slid it back. I felt sick. Betrayal is a slow knife. You don't feel it cut until it's already deep. The next few days, I played the role of the dutiful husband. I kissed her forehead in the mornings. I offered to pick up groceries. I smiled through our dinners. But inside, I was watching, listening, gathering. Then it happened again. Friday night. Game night. Our place this time. Lena couldn't make it. Migraine, Jake said with a crooked grin, walking through our front door with a bottle of wine tucked under his arm. Haley wore that same red V-neck sweater. Her makeup was subtle but intentional. I hadn't seen her put that much effort into a date night with me in months. And for a casual game night, it seemed curated. We played categories. Haley sat closer to Jake than to me. Their banter was effortless, seamless. The occasional hand on the arm. The knowing glances. At one point, I dropped my pen and bent to pick it up. When I sat back up, I caught them mid-smile, just staring at each other. The kind of stare you don't share with your neighbor's wife. The kind of stare you don't give unless something's already been said. Or done. When the night ended, I saw Jake out. Haley stayed inside to tidy up. As I handed him his jacket, I looked him straight in the eye. "You know," I said, casually, "I found your spare key." Jake's smile faltered for just a second, but he recovered quick. "Oh yeah? Been looking for that. Where was it?" I shrugged. "Haley's nightstand." His eyes flicked past me, to the living room, then back. "Huh," he said, chuckling. "Weird place for it." "Yeah, weird." He nodded. "Well, night, man, night." I watched him walk back across the lawn to his house, slow and unbothered. Like nothing was wrong. Like my wife wasn't slipping away from me one careful lie at a time. But I knew now. I knew what they thought they were hiding. And I knew exactly how I was going to wait. The funny thing about betrayal is that it doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't happen with the dramatic slamming of doors or lipstick stains on collars. No. Real betrayal is quiet. Strategic. Like the rustle of sheets in a bed you're not in. Or the clink of wine glasses in a backyard you thought was safe. That Monday started like any other. I kissed Haley on the temple as I left for work, her skin still warm from the blankets. She mumbled something about making lemon chicken for dinner and drifted back into sleep. Her phone, as usual, was tucked beneath her pillow. Another fortress I wasn't allowed to breach. But today I wasn't going to the office. I drove around for a while. Got coffee. Sat in a parking lot with the windows down and the radio off. Let the silence settle into me like sediment. Then, around 10:30, I parked 2 blocks from home and walked the rest of the way. It was the key in my pocket that made my hands sweat. Not mine. His. Jake's spare key. The same key we'd all laughed about over drinks and board games. The just-in-case key. The one Lena had tossed to me like a party favor. I stood at the front door for a moment longer than I needed to, wondering if I was really about to do this. But then I heard it. A sound I hadn't heard in weeks. Haley's laugh. Not the one she used when she was being polite. The real one. Deep and husky and careless. The one she used when she was happy. The one she used when she thought I wasn't home. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was too quiet in all the wrong places. No TV. No music. Just muffled voices coming from the hallway. I moved silently. Years of creaky floors and sneaking snacks taught me where to step. As I got closer, the sound became clearer. Laughter again. Then a low moan. Then, not so loud. It wasn't coming from our bedroom. No, it was coming from the guest room. Something about that detail, that they didn't even use our bed, stung more than I expected. Like they were trying to keep the home part intact. As if fucking in another room made it more forgivable. I stopped just outside the door. It was cracked open. Just a sliver. Enough to hear the rhythm of 2 bodies moving together. Enough to catch the breathy cadence of pleasure that had nothing to do with me. Jake's voice was unmistakable. "God, you feel so good." Haley's reply was a whisper I couldn't quite hear, but I didn't need to. The sound was enough. My jaw clenched. I didn't kick the door open. I didn't yell or throw anything. I didn't need to. I turned, walked down the hall, grabbed my coat, and headed across the lawn, to Lena's house. I stood there for a second with her key now warm in my hand. The same casual exchange. The same trust. Just in case, Lena had said. Well, this was the case. I slipped the key into the lock and opened the door slowly. No alarm. No barking dog. Just the soft tick of the wall clock and the faint scent of lavender. "Hello," I called gently. A shuffle. Then footsteps. Lena appeared in the hallway, wearing leggings and an oversized hoodie, her brown hair pulled into a loose knot on top of her head. She looked surprised. Not scared. Just confused. "Daniel." I nodded. My throat was dry. She looked past me, like maybe Haley was standing behind me. Something wrong. And that's when I broke. I didn't cry. Not exactly. But my voice cracked when I said it. "They're together. Right now? In our guest room." Lena didn't ask who. She didn't even blink. She just nodded once. Quiet. Then she turned around, walked to the kitchen, and came back with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I've suspected for weeks, she said as she poured. Guess we both had the wrong emergencies. I took the glass and sat down at her kitchen table. It was warm here. Lived in. There was a stack of magazines, a little bowl of keys and chapstick, and a dog-eared copy of The Alchemist. Lena sat across from me and stared into her wine. I heard him on the phone a few nights ago, she said, telling someone he missed her mouth. She glanced up. Jake's never said that to me. Not even once. I winced. I found the spare key in Haley's nightstand. She laughed then. A bitter, broken sound. Of course you did. We sat in silence for a while, drinking, listening to the quiet buzz of the fridge and the occasional chirp from a bird outside. Do you think they love each other? I asked. She shook her head. I think they love getting away with it. I stared at her. She met my gaze. You want to go back over there? I thought about it. About busting into the guest room, catching them tangled in sheets and excuses. About the explosion, the fight, the inevitable apologies. No, I said. Let them have their emergency. And just like that, I stayed. With Lena. And everything shifted. Because the fire that had been burning in my chest didn't die. It just started to glow in a new direction. And her eyes? They weren't crying. They were watching me. Studying. And I could feel something starting. Not revenge. Not yet. Not exactly. But something. Something dangerously close to comfort. Something dangerously close to temptation. It's strange how quickly pain can turn to clarity. You spend days, weeks, months walking around in a fog, pretending things are fine, convincing yourself you're imagining the distance in a kiss or the fake smile over morning coffee. Then, one sound, one glance, one overheard moan, and suddenly, the fog clears. And you're standing in the wreckage of your life, wide awake. Lena poured another glass. No words. No comfort cliches. Just the bottle between us and the quiet click of glass on wood. They never even try to hide it, she said, almost to herself. I nodded, staring into the deep red swirl in my glass. They used the guest room, like they thought that made it less personal. She laughed once, low and joyless. Jake's go to move. Avoid intimacy while chasing it. The clock above the stove ticked toward noon. Sunlight streamed through the blinds in long slats, cutting across the kitchen like prison bars. I traced one of them with my finger on the table. I used to think Haley was just going through something, I said. Like she'd come out the other side of it and be her again. Lena's voice was quiet. What do you see now? I didn't answer at first. Then I said it. I see someone I don't know anymore. She nodded. Same. A soft wind rattled the window above the sink. Somewhere across the street, a lawnmower buzzed to life, a jarring contrast to the stillness between us. It should have been awkward. A husband and wife, both betrayed, sitting at a kitchen table on a weekday while their spouses tangled sheets 100 feet away. But it wasn't awkward. It was real, raw, undeniably human. Lena stood and walked to the counter. You want something stronger? I raised an eyebrow. Stronger than wine at noon? She smirked and pulled a bottle of bourbon from a cabinet above the fridge. This isn't brunch, Daniel. This is triage. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. She poured 2 fingers into each glass and slid one toward me. We clinked without ceremony and sipped. It burned just enough to make me feel something again. Then she sat back down, her posture a little looser now, her eyes steady on mine. I always knew he liked Haley, she said finally. I just didn't think he'd do this. You said you suspected for weeks. She nodded. Suspected, yes. Knew. She gestured vaguely. I wasn't ready to know. I ran a hand through my hair. They planned it. That's what gets me. They used those spare keys like it was a system. A routine. She leaned back in her chair, her face unreadable. Jake's always liked routines. He fucks like he's on a timer. Efficient. Repetitive. Like checking off a chore list. I choked on my drink. Lena didn't flinch. Sorry. That was blunt. No, it was perfect, I said, still coughing. I think Haley said the exact opposite about me once. Too tender, she called me. Lena tilted her head. That's not a flaw. She meant it as one. Silence again. This time heavier. Like something had shifted, even if just slightly. Her eyes hadn't moved from mine. And for the first time, I didn't look away. I studied her, the way her lips curved when she was holding back a thought, the way her hair spilled messily over one shoulder, the faint freckles near her collarbone just visible through her oversized hoodie. She was beautiful, not in the loud, attention-stealing way Haley was. Lena was the kind of beautiful you notice slowly, the kind that stuck with you when your eyes were closed. She caught me looking, and she didn't look away. I should have kicked him out months ago, she said softly. I just didn't want to be the woman with a failed marriage. I exhaled through my nose. We both are now. Her voice dropped. Are we? That question, simple, innocent, landed like a match in dry brush. Because I hadn't admitted it yet. Not out loud. Not even to myself. That what Haley and Jake were doing wasn't just a fling. It wasn't curiosity. It was something else. Something ongoing. And deliberate. I don't think I can come back from this, I said. She nodded slowly. Then don't. Her hand brushed against mine. Not accidentally. Not flirtatiously. Just deliberately. Humanly. And I didn't pull away. I'm not trying to jump into anything, I said, voice low. I know. I just don't want to be alone with this. You're not. We stayed there like that for a while. Fingers close. Breathing the same air. And then, a crash. Glass shattering. I flinched and stood up fast, my pulse spiking. Lena's eyes went wide. We ran to the living room. At first, I thought someone had broken in. But then I saw it, her wine glass, tipped from the edge of the table, crimson spreading into the rug like blood. Shit, she whispered, rushing to grab paper towels. I bent to help her, but when we both reached for the same shard, our fingers met and lingered. Soft voices. Broken glass. That was all it took. We looked at each other, and something passed between us. Not desperation. Not revenge. Something simpler. Need. She leaned in first. Hesitant. Barely there. But I met her halfway. And in that quiet, shattered moment, our lips touched. Not a kiss of passion. A kiss of understanding. A kiss between two people who had nothing left to lose. I didn't plan to go back to Jake and Lena's house that night. Hell, I didn't even plan to leave mine. But sometimes the weight of silence becomes unbearable. After dinner with Haley, awkward, strained, and full of fake smiles, I found myself staring at the front door like it might open by itself and reveal a truth I already knew. She didn't talk much. Said she had a headache. Her phone buzzed a few times. She ignored it, then took it into the bathroom for 20 minutes. I didn't ask who it was. Didn't have to. By the time she curled into bed next to me, the air between us was thick with unspoken confessions. I laid still, eyes open, listening to her breath slow into sleep. And then I stood up, slipped out of bed without a sound. I didn't even put on shoes. Jake's spare key was still in my drawer. I hadn't told Haley I took it back. I hadn't returned it either. It was still mine. I walked across the street under a silver-washed sky, the pavement cold beneath my bare feet, heart pounding like it already knew this was the point of no return. Lena's porch light was off. The house dark except for a faint glow from the living room. I let myself in. She was on the couch in sweats, a blanket draped over her legs, wine glass in hand, TV playing some nature documentary she clearly wasn't watching. Her eyes lifted when she saw me, and she didn't look surprised. You came back, she said softly, not moving. I closed the door behind me and held up the key between two fingers. Thought I should return this. She smiled. Just a little. Didn't think you'd do it like this. I didn't either. We stood there, suspended in the kind of silence that hums. That means something. That isn't empty at all. Then she patted the spot next to her on the couch. I poured extra, she said. I sat down beside her, close. Closer than I needed to. Not quite touching, but enough that I could feel her warmth. She handed me the glass. It was the same Syrah from the boutique wine shop. Jake's favorite. Thought I'd see what the hype was about, she muttered. Spoiler, it's just okay. I took a sip. Overpriced, honestly. She laughed, dry, short. Figures. Then her eyes dropped to my hand. You kept the key. I didn't know why at first. Just didn't want to give it back. And now, I set the glass down. Now I knew exactly why I still had it. Without thinking, without needing to, our hands found each other. Hers slipped over mine like it belonged there. And when she turned her face toward me, I didn't hesitate. Our lips met fast this time. No preamble. No testing. Just us. It started slow. Careful. Then her hands slid into my hair and everything changed. I tasted wine and salt and something I hadn't had in months, being wanted. Lena pulled me onto her, the blanket falling away, her body rising to meet mine. Her sweatshirt came off in one motion, tossed to the floor. My shirt followed. And suddenly we weren't Daniel and Lena, the betrayed spouses. We were something else. Skin met skin. No awkwardness. No guilt. Just heat. Desperate and full. She kissed like she meant it. Like she needed it. Fingertips on my chest, down my back, tugging me into her with a hunger that made my breath catch. And when we finally collapsed onto Jake and Lena's bed, their bed, it didn't feel wrong. It felt like balance. The kind of balance that comes when two broken things meet at the right angle. Her legs wrapped around me, bare and inviting. My lips found her neck, her collarbone, the space behind her ear that made her whisper my name like she wasn't sure if she wanted me to stop or never stop. I thought I forgot what this felt like. She breathed, voice thick with want. You didn't, I said, tracing my hand down her stomach. You just stopped having it. She pulled me back into her, and this time, we didn't hold back. We didn't speak. Not until we both fell apart in the dark, limbs tangled, breath shallow, hearts loud. When I woke, the clock said 3:22 a.m. She was asleep next to me, hair a mess across the pillow, one hand resting on my chest like she never planned to let go. I eased out from under the sheet, careful not to wake her, and walked barefoot into the kitchen. Found a sticky note, a pin, and left the key beside her coffee pot. The note said, "Spare key returned. Found something I lost here. My dignity." Sunlight hit my eyes before I even opened them. It came through the window in thick, golden sheets, warming the tangle of limbs and linen I'd found myself in. I blinked slowly, adjusting to the unfamiliar room. Jake and Lena's bedroom. Their bed. Our bed, for last night at least. Lena stirred beside me, face buried in the crook of her arm, the curve of her bare back catching the light like it was painted there. My first instinct was to slide closer, to run my fingers down the dip of her spine, to relive the heat we'd created just hours earlier. But I didn't. Not because I regretted it, but because for the first time in months, I felt still. No buzzing dread. No low-burning humiliation. Just stillness. I eased out of bed, careful not to wake her. My clothes were scattered around the room in a half-naked trail that made me smirk. Shirt by the door. Belt looped on the floor like a forgotten sentence. Her bra still hung crooked from the corner of a picture frame. Irony wasn't lost on me. It was a wedding photo. Jake in a tux. Lena smiling. I picked up my jeans and tugged them on. Quietly found my socks, my shirt. I looked at Lena once more before leaving the room. She was beautiful in the morning light. Real. No filters. No pretense. Just skin and silence in the memory of everything we shared between us like a still warm ghost in the bed. I made my way to the kitchen. The note I'd written was still there, propped neatly beside the coffee pot. Spare key returned. Found something I lost here, my dignity. I almost scratched it out. Almost added a smiley face just to soften the truth. But no, it was exactly what I meant. What I felt. My dignity wasn't about sex. It wasn't about revenge. It was about choice. And last night, I had chosen not to be broken anymore. I let myself out through the side door. The sun was just high enough to cast long shadows across the lawn. It was early enough that no one else was up, not even the usual dog walkers or joggers. I walked barefoot back across the street, still carrying the warmth of Lena's touch under my shirt. Back home, Haley was in the kitchen. She looked up from her phone as I stepped in, her face a little too surprised to be natural. "Hey," she said, forcing a yawn. "I didn't hear you leave." I couldn't sleep. Went for a walk. She raised a brow. "In jeans." I smiled thinly. Eventually got cold. She sipped her coffee. Her robe was cinched tighter than usual, like she was trying to hide something beneath it, not just skin, but guilt. Her hair was slightly damp, freshly showered. Her phone lit up on the counter. She turned it face down. I nodded toward it. "Jake checking in?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Don't start." "I didn't," I said calmly, walking past her. "You did. Weeks ago." She didn't respond. Just turned away like she always did when she couldn't lie fast enough. I went upstairs, showered, shaved, put on a shirt she hadn't complimented in years. By the time I came back down, she had left, her car gone. No note, no explanation. Didn't matter. I didn't need one. I opened my phone and found Lena's contact. Typed one sentence. "You okay?" It took less than a minute for her to reply. "Better than I've been in months." Then, "Want to talk tonight?" I paused, and then I wrote, "Only if you still have wine." She sent a winking emoji. For the rest of the day, I floated. I went to work. Focused. Efficient. Even cracked a few jokes with Rick from accounting, who usually made me want to staple my own eyelids shut. At lunch, I walked outside instead of eating at my desk. Let the breeze mess with my hair. Let the quiet replace the rage that used to follow me around like a second skin. That night, Haley came home late. Again. She didn't say where she'd been. I didn't ask. She walked past me like I was furniture. Didn't look me in the eye. And for once, I didn't need her to, because I saw something better in someone else's eyes. Someone who didn't pretend, who didn't hide, who didn't lie to my face, then crawl into my bed with another man's scent still on her skin. The next evening, I returned to Lena's place. This time, I didn't use a key. I knocked. And when she opened the door barefoot, holding 2 glasses and already pouring, I stepped inside without hesitation. The thing about secrets is that they're heavy. You can carry them quietly for a while, tucked behind smiles and silent dinners. But eventually, they start leaking out, through posture, voice, absence, through the way you stop touching someone, or the way you start watching someone else a little too long. And in a neighborhood like ours, where every backyard shares a fence and every porch is a stage, secrets don't stay secret for long. The first crack came from Lena. She didn't mean to start the storm. It happened during a Sunday block brunch, a casual, kid-friendly thing the neighbors hosted once a month. Tables of donuts and bagels, fresh fruit in plastic bowls, mimosa pitchers clinking with ice. Lena showed up alone. Jake didn't. When someone asked, she smiled tightly and said, "He's probably recovering from all the wine nights at Haley's place." The air went still for a beat, just long enough for the implication to land. Lena sipped her mimosa like nothing had happened. I wasn't there, but I heard about it from Ben, our next-door neighbor and the unofficial mayor of the block, by Monday morning. "Look," he said, carefully folding his arms over the fence. "I don't want to get involved, but people are starting to talk." I raised an eyebrow. "Talk about what?" Ben gave me a look, the kind men use when they're trying to warn you without humiliating you. "You know what?" I smiled, calm as hell. "Let them." That same day, I came home from work and Haley was waiting. And not in the sweet, "Hey babe, how was your day" kind of way. No, she was standing in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, phone in hand, mouth pulled tight like a drawstring bag. "You've been at Lena's," she said flatly. I didn't respond. "I saw you, Daniel. You went over there Saturday night and didn't come home." I sat down on the edge of the couch, loosened my tie. "Why do you care?" Her face twisted. "Are you serious?" "You're fucking Jake," I said simply. "You don't get to be shocked." Her eyes flared. "That's not, Jesus, you don't know anything." I laughed, genuinely. "Oh, I know. I know what your moans sound like from the guest room. I know what Jake's voice sounds like when he's inside my wife. I know, Haley." She flinched. It was the first time I'd ever seen her look small. She sat down across from me, shoulders sagging. "How long have you and Lena?" I met her eyes. "The night I found you." I left. Went to her. She already knew. Her voice cracked. "You slept with her?" I didn't look away. More than once. She covered her face with her hands. "This is a disaster." I let the silence fill the space between us, let it hang in the room like the smell of something burned. Then I said, "It didn't have to be." She looked up, mascara smudged under one eye. "What does that mean?" "It means we were fine until you decided I wasn't exciting enough. Until Jake became the answer to questions you never asked me." "That's not fair," she snapped. "No, Haley. What's not fair is you taking off your ring before going to Lena's guest room. What's not fair is watching you dress up for him and pretend you're just refilling wine." She stood up, pacing now. "So what? You're with her now? You and Lena are, what, in love?" I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. But I was sure of one thing. "She sees me," I said quietly. "That's more than I can say for you." And I left it at that. After that conversation, things started unraveling fast. Jake confronted me the next day. He came over while I was watering the lawn like some suburban cliché, arms tense, trying to act casual. "Got a minute?" he asked. "Not really," I replied, without looking up. He shifted. "We need to talk." I finally stood. "Go ahead." His jaw twitched. "Look, man, I never meant for this to happen." I smirked. "Is that what you told Lena? Or Haley?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "She came onto me first. You know that, right?" I stepped closer. "Don't ever put this on her. You're a grown man who made a choice." "So did she. So did I." His face hardened. "So what? You're screwing my wife now? Is this some kind of revenge thing?" "No," I said simply. "It's not revenge, Jake." I smiled. "It's a fucking upgrade." He didn't respond. Just stood there, fist clenched, nostrils flaring. But he didn't swing. He just turned and walked away. Back to his house. Back to his mess. The rest of the week was chaos. Lena changed the locks. Haley started sleeping in the guest room. I stopped pretending. People noticed. The whispers came fast. Old ladies on walks, glancing through their sunglasses. Ben's wife, Paige, giving me that look that said we're all talking about it. But I'm on your side. The lawn greetings faded. The casual how's work chats died out. No more barbecues. No more game nights. Just tension. And stares. The neighborhood had become a minefield of unspoken truths. But I didn't mind. Because every time I looked across the street and saw Lena standing at her window, hair pulled back, eyes locked with mine, I knew. We were both done pretending. Jake showed up 3 days later, fist clenched and pride already bruised. I was in the garage, sorting tools, an excuse to avoid Haley and her passive-aggressive silence echoing through the house like a dying air conditioner. The door creaked open, and there he was, standing at the threshold like a man deciding whether to speak or swing. He chose to speak. "You're a fucking coward," he said. I didn't flinch. Just kept organizing the socket wrenches. "That's new." Jake stepped in, voice low, dangerous. "You didn't come to me like a man. You snuck around. You fucked my wife." I turned, slowly. Met his eyes. "You mean Lena? The woman you left behind every time you refilled the wine, across the street?" His face twisted. "It wasn't supposed to go that far." I chuckled, bitter. "That's what Haley said about you. You two are a real matching set." His fist twitched. I could see it in his jaw, the decision hanging in the balance. But he didn't throw a punch. He did worse. "You think Lena's going to stay with you?" He sneered. "You're a warm body. A rebound. She'll come to her senses." I stepped forward, wiping my hands on a rag. "You left the door open, Jake." "I just walked in." And then I smiled. That smile, the one that drives men like him insane. The kind that says, "I'm not playing by your rules anymore." Jake stared at me for a long second, like he was daring himself to break something. But he didn't. He left, slamming the side door behind him like a child denied a toy. Later that night, I found Lena in the middle of what looked like a home renovation war zone. The living room rug had been rolled up and shoved against the wall. The coffee table was gone. A stack of framed photos sat face down on the kitchen island. She was barefoot, in cut-off shorts and an old college t-shirt, dragging a bookshelf across the floor. Did you get robbed?" She glanced over her shoulder and grinned. "Nope. Just making some edits." "To what?" "The house. To my life." I stepped further in, dodging a pile of old throw pillows and a dismantled lamp. "Need help?" She paused, brushed a curl from her cheek with the back of her wrist. "Actually, yeah. Can you take that hideous mirror down? The one Jake picked out? I want it gone." It was a heavy bastard, mounted over the fireplace like some kind of suburban trophy. I unhooked it, careful not to drop it, and leaned it against the wall. Lena stared at it, then grabbed a hammer. And without saying a word, she brought it down. Glass shattered everywhere. She didn't flinch. Neither did I. We didn't say much after that. Just kept tearing through the place. By midnight, the living room was stripped down to bare essentials. The walls empty. The carpet pulled halfway up. It felt cleansing. "What brought this on?" I asked as we collapsed on the floor with a pair of beers. She took a long sip. I realized I built this house around a man who didn't actually live here. I looked around. "Feels lighter." She nodded. He left pieces of himself and everything. His taste. His rules. I don't want to live in a shrine to a man who couldn't even keep his vows. I tapped her bottle with mine, to gutting it all out. "Cheers." A beat passed. Then she said, "He came by today." I tensed. "Jake." "Yeah." Said he still had feelings. Said I was making a mistake. I raised a brow. "And?" She smiled, slow and sure. "I told him if he needed closure, he could come collect his shit, preferably while I'm not home." I laughed. She leaned against my shoulder. We sat like that for a long time, not talking, just listening to the creaks of the stripped-down room around us, like the house itself was sighing in relief. Later, as I walked back across the street, I noticed something. Haley had left the porch light on again, but for the first time in months, I didn't pause, didn't look up, didn't feel that stab in my gut. I walked into my house, past her sleeping on the couch with her phone in her hand, and went straight to the guest room, closed the door, and for once, I slept soundly. 2 days later, Lena texted me a photo. It was her front living room. New paint on the walls, soft green. The old rug replaced with a simple jute mat. The mirror gone. The photos replaced with art. The caption said, "Some walls aren't meant to hold memories. Some are meant for something new." I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the photo, letting it wash over me. Then I wrote, "Want to help me repaint a life?" She sent back a heart. Not an emoji. A picture. Drawn in paint. Right on the wall. It had been almost 2 weeks since Lena shattered that mirror, and somehow, that sound still echoed in my chest. A clean break. Since then, everything between us had been steady. Quiet, even. But not in the dull, married for a decade kind of way. No, it was the kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when the sky clears, and everything feels possible again. I'd started spending most of my nights at Lena's. We didn't call it anything. We didn't need to. The wine stayed open. The sheets stayed warm. Her eyes never avoided mine in the morning. And when we laughed, it was real. We were becoming something. Not out of spite. Not from bitterness. But because we fit. It was Haley who cracked first. She came home early one Thursday. I'd been packing a small overnight bag in the bedroom. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, wearing one of my old college sweatshirts like it still meant something. "You're staying over there again?" I didn't answer at first. "I made dinner," she said. "Thought maybe we could talk." I looked at her. Not through her. Not with resentment. Just looked. "What is there to talk about, Haley?" Her eyes were glassy. "I made a mistake." I nodded. "Yeah, you did." Her voice dropped. "But I didn't expect to lose you over it. You didn't lose me because of the mistake. You lost me because of what you did after. You lied. You covered. You doubled down. And you never once apologized." She took a shaky breath. "I thought you'd fight for us." "I did," I said, slinging my bag over my shoulder. "I fought, while you were busy fighting your urges with Jake." Her eyes flashed with guilt, and something else. Desperation. "You still love me," she said. "I know you do." I paused in the doorway. "I don't even know who you are anymore." And I left. She didn't follow. She didn't call. I didn't either. That weekend, Lena and I spent a full day cleaning out her attic. Old boxes. Forgotten memories. High school yearbooks. Broken Christmas lights. At one point, I found an old shoebox labeled "Jake's shit." She took one look at it and tossed it straight into a black trash bag. No hesitation. No ceremony. Afterward, we sat on the back deck, drinking cold beer out of the bottle and watching the sky melt into orange and lavender. "Do you ever think about how fast everything changed?" she asked. "All the time." She turned to me, brow furrowed. "Does that scare you?" "No," I said. "You?" She shook her head. "It terrifies me, but not in a bad way." I leaned closer. "In what kind of way?" "In the way that makes me want to open every locked door and see what's behind it." I didn't say anything. I just reached into my pocket and pulled out 2 keys. One was the original spare from her house, the one she gave me before all this started. The just-in-case key. The other was new. A copy I made that morning. To my place. I handed them both to her. She blinked. "What's this?" I shrugged. "You said you wanted to open doors." She looked at the keys, then at me, and smiled. "Your turn," she said, reaching into her pocket. She handed me a small ring. 2 keys. One for her front door. One for the back. "They're yours," she said. "No, just in case this time." And just like that, it wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about what we'd lost. It was about what we were choosing. Each other. Fully. Honestly. Without pretense. Jake tried to get her back once more. Showed up drunk on her porch the following week. Flowers in one hand. Some pathetic speech in the other. I answered the door. His face fell. "She doesn't want to see you," I said. "You think this is real?" he slurred. "You think you're some kind of fucking upgrade?" "No," I said. "I know I am." And I shut the door. Behind it, Lena was waiting. In my hoodie. Hair messy. Smiling like nothing in the world could touch us now. Haley left the house 3 days later. She took only what she needed. A few boxes. Clothes. Some photos. She didn't leave a note. She didn't have to. That part of my life, our life, was over. Quietly. Finally. I stood in the empty hallway that night, the walls still smelling faintly of her perfume. But there was no grief. Only space. A door closed. And another, waiting to be opened. I walked outside. Across the lawn. Up Lena's porch steps. The door was already unlocked. And when I stepped inside, it felt like home. I still pass the old house sometimes. It's just across the street, after all. I can see the porch from Lena's kitchen window. The one I used to sit on every Saturday morning, coffee in hand, pretending the cracks weren't forming beneath my feet. Haley doesn't live there anymore. She moved out quietly, like the ghost she became during our final months together. No moving truck, no farewell. Just a few boxes stuffed into her sister's SUV, and a slammed door that didn't echo half as loudly as it should have. The for sale sign went up a week later. It didn't take long. Our neighborhood is nice, too nice for the drama, it just barely survived. Young couple bought it. No kids yet. Fresh landscaping, new paint. They even restained the porch. I don't hate them for it. That place isn't mine anymore. Jake still lives across the way. Alone. Sometimes I catch him on the porch, smoking a cigar like it makes him feel powerful. He never looks over. I think he knows he can't. I think seeing me, seeing us, makes him choke on the life he thought he could manipulate. His lawn's gone patchy. Paint chipping on the trim. Like the house knows it's been abandoned in spirit, even if his body still sleeps there. Lena doesn't speak his name anymore. Neither do I. We don't need to. She moved in officially 2 months after Haley left. There was no big announcement. No champagne or keys tied to red bows. Just a slow, quiet migration of boxes and habits. Toothbrush in my bathroom. Favorite mug in my cabinet. A drawer that slowly became hers. Then 2. Then a closet. Then everything. Now it's our home. 1 house, 1 door. 2 keys on a single ring. We replaced the front lock together, not because of fear, but because of choice. Because we wanted the symbolism. Something new. Something ours. The old keys sit in a drawer somewhere, tucked beneath a stack of takeout menus and old batteries. History. Nothing more. Sometimes the neighbors still whisper. About the scandal. About how 2 marriages imploded and rebuilt themselves in the same zip code. About how Daniel and Lena went from board game friends to something out of a soap opera. But most of them don't talk anymore. Because gossip only lasts as long as people are unhappy. And we're not. We host dinners now, small, easy ones. Wine, music, a few close friends. No pretense. No performance. Just real people, real food, real laughter. We dance in the kitchen sometimes. No music. Just bare feet on cold tile and her head against my chest. That's the rhythm I follow now. Not doubt. Not suspicion. Just the quiet, certain beat of a woman who never once needed to lie to me. Last week, I found an old note tucked between 2 books while cleaning. It was the one I left on Lena's counter after the first night we slept together. Spare key returned. Found something I lost here, my dignity. She caught me reading it and smiled. I never threw it out, she said. Why not? Because I think it was the first honest thing either of us had done in a long time. I kissed her without replying. Some things don't need words anymore. People always say cheating destroys everything. And it does. It tears down trust, memory, identity. But what they don't talk about is what comes after. When the dust settles. When you stop chasing what broke you and start building from what's left. Lena and I weren't born out of revenge. We were born out of aftermath. Out of wreckage. Out of the simple, human truth that sometimes the people meant for you show up wearing different names, different rings, and arrive later than you expected. Sometimes, the right door opens after the wrong one slams shut. And when it does, you walk through. You don't look back. You don't need to. Some doors stay closed for good. And some open straight into peace.